Hello everyone, this is Brad. This is the Skycurser daily number 2, and today the current task is the explosion shrapnel that we're going to work on. I'll be picking up right where I left off at the end of the stream yesterday. At the end of the stream yesterday we had Chris Cruz on. He is the art director, and I gave a lot of intro to the project yesterday as we were working on it. Also, if you have any questions while I'm going through here, feel free to just stop me in the middle of something and ask me a question. I'll check periodically to make sure I'm not missing any questions. And yeah, so let's go ahead and get started here. Got a little sound going. Also, like I mentioned, the current task for today is explosion shrapnel. I hope not to be on that task for too much longer. I'm going to make a couple of changes to my frame really quickly, so give me just a moment. Okay, this is daily number 2, so I wanted to make sure that was updated. And if you joined us yesterday, you may have noticed that I had Chris Cruz on. We were having a little bit of technical difficulty initially, and we're trying to work through the technical difficulty with Skype and Google+. I think my laptop was having some issues correctly receiving audio, so I got that worked out. Also, you may have just heard one end of the conversation, my end of the conversation. If I get Chris or Phil in here in any time in the future, we should be able to hear them no problem. Also, again, I'm kind of new to OBS, the streaming software. I set up a couple of scenes that I can switch between, so you don't have to see me switch between every single screen on my or application on my computer. So basically right now we just have the Skycurser game. When I pull that up, you'll see the Skycurser game, and you'll see mostly just what's in GameMaker and as I'm working through GameMaker. So is there anything else that I need to cover before I get started? Oh yeah, yesterday I mentioned, and I'll mention it again today and maybe a couple times here in the near future with at the beginning of the dailies. I do have a green screen behind me. This is a picture of our house, but at the same time I do have a wife and son, and so the room can be and a crazy dog, and so the room can be scattered with toys a lot and just be a little bit messy in general. So if you see some ghosting on the screen from me or my headset, which is also green, that's just because I've got a green screen behind me. So again, if you have any questions, just stop me in the middle of something. I am currently in the task of working through the task that has been assigned to me, which is making sure the shrapnel looks good, specifically when object enemy 1 is destroyed, or what we call our EBP, our eyeball plane, and also whenever the tank, what we call our object tank, is destroyed. And the tank is actually an aircraft carrier, so I'm working through the shrapnel on that. I think the last thing that I think where I left off at was wondering if I thought the shrapnel looked good on the carrier. I think I was satisfied with the way the shrapnel looked whenever I was fighting against the eyeball plane, but I'm not entirely sure the shrapnel looked as good as I wanted it to on the carrier, so I'm going to take another look at that and see what I think about it. So that's where I'm going to start right now. If I don't think the shrapnel looks good, what I may do is reduce the number of points that the shrapnel flies from, and I may also work on the speed of the shrapnel along the path based on some of the final changes that Chris and I talked through yesterday, and just kind of how we thought the shrapnel should look. I may not need to touch the speed at all on the path that the shrapnel flies. So if I don't have to, that's good, because If you're familiar with GameMaker in any way, GameMaker has path speed as opposed to object speed. So whenever you set an object along a path, you can control the speed of that object along the path, but you don't control it like you would think that you normally would with all the other objects. If you're sending a specific object in a specific direction and setting it to a speed, that's a little bit easier than controlling it along a path. Again, I don't think it's too difficult to control it along a path, but the hard part about it is when do you want the object to speed up and slow down? The hard part is calculating where the object is along the path and then making sure that you're either speeding it up as you think you should be speeding up, or slowing it down as you think you should be slowing it down. And with the shrapnel in particular, as that's hitting the height of its arc, I wanted to slow that down and then speed it up, kind of like gravity. But again, my changes, we may not need to make those changes, so let me just get started here. And where I'm going to start at is actually hitting go on the game. So the game is going to compile for a moment, and we're just going to watch and see what the shrapnel looks like as I destroy.
Skycurser. Mission 1, Death at Dusk. Go! Their own position rather than the exact position of the explosion, because I think right now it looks a little bit funny coming out of the exact position of the explosion. And I think what that also means is that I'm going to reduce the specific locations that the shrapnel can come out of. So let's get back over to our GameMaker. And I think I'm okay with it, with where it stands on the EBP, but I think I want to update it on the carrier. So I'm going to go straight to the carrier, and specifically the location that the carrier's death script is. Script tank 1 die, and so let's see here. Okay, so I think the easiest way to handle this is to give a little bit less movement for the shrapnel in terms of where it can originate from. So I'm gonna let it start from still a random X and a random Y position, but I'm going to make another random X position. And I'm going to, I'll go ahead and let it be the same random X. Actually, since I'm going to use the same random X, I won't create another random X, but I will create a random Y position, because I don't want, let me think here. No, I will have to create another random X, mainly because as the random X that is selected right there will be the same point that the explosion occurs from. And I don't want, as I was thinking about it, I'm going to try it once without the shrapnel originating in the exact same place as the explosion and see what that looks like. Also, I felt like the shrapnel exploded just a little too fast. It didn't look right with everything else. So I'm going to slow that down just a little bit. If you joined us yesterday, I had a conversation with Chris on stream, and he wanted it to speed up considerably. We took a look at Metal Slug. Metal Slug does some similar things. I think it might have been the third Metal Slug level 5. We looked it up on YouTube and kind of saw how they were doing their shrapnel on metal objects. And so we're trying to find a good balance right now, and we found a pretty close to a good balance, but I'm going to slow it down just slightly. Chris and I didn't get to do a lot of testing after I changed it. We saw the change once, and I think even the way it was on stream, he might not have been able to see it after I made that change. So I'm going to create another random X, and I'm going to just call it random X2 since I'm creating a second random X. And this will be another position, so I can use the exact same coordinates, -71 and 151, but this will be obviously different than that first selection because the random selection is happening again. And I'm going to do the same thing with random Y2, random range, and I think I'll go ahead and do the same exact thing. Give it the exact same coordinates because those coordinates are 50 pixels high, so that's not very much height on screen overall. And then I'll go ahead and say random X2, random Y2, and I think I'm good at that point. I think that would cover everything. What I want to also do that I mentioned is I want to slow down the speed of the shrapnel as it moves along the path. So let's go look at the base shrapnel object and also look at the speed. Oh yeah, okay, so we sped it up considerably and made everything the same speed. What I might do is slow it down just a little bit and give it an option to choose from 2 different speeds instead of just having one speed. Okay, so let's try this, see what the difference is, and we'll hop into the game here. Alright, waiting for it to come up. I'll switch over to it as soon as it comes up. Okay, here we go.
Skycurser. Mission 1. Death at dusk. Go!
Okay. I think I'll also let's see. I think I'll also slow down, no, speed up the rotation of the shrapnel. It just looks like a whole bunch of straight pieces of shrapnel flying out. So I'm going to speed this up a little bit, slightly, and I wanted to also alter how many of these fired. And let me just take a look here. Looking for the script, tank 1. Okay, what I think I'll do is we're counting the explosions here. We want there to apparently be 15 explosions, and that might explain why it looks so funny. I think what I'll do is say if argument 0.explosions is equal to 1, or argument 0.explosions is equal to 3. Let's do 4. Or argument 0.explosions is equal to 7 or 10, or argument 0.explosions is equal to 13. Now, I would normally probably just write that in modulus format, but since I'm already inside of a modulus code block, which if you're familiar with programming, this is modulus right here, so I'm saying every 3 steps, or every step modulus 3 where the remainder is 0. That's basically saying if the remainder is 0, then go ahead and run what's in this block. And I would probably do something like this where the remainder was 1 or something along those lines, but I don't want to you got to be careful when you do something like that inside of something that's already got a modulus on it. So I would like this to activate when an explosion is occurring based on this, but I'll be specific about which explosions it's occurring on. So let's just go ahead and try that. And yeah, it's pretty evenly spaced on the shrapnel. That may be something that I switch up, maybe make it a little bit more. Going to go back in and test it.
Skycurser. Mission 1. Death at dusk. Go!
I like that. I like that a lot. I think I'm going to leave it at that. I think I will leave it there. All right. From there, I think I'll mark this task done, and I will go ahead and go through the process that I normally go through. When I'm finished with the current task, I go ahead and commit that to my Git repo. Our Git repo is at Bitbucket. Bitbucket allows you to have 2 free Git repos, and since we're indie devs and trying to make sure we save where possible, we use Bitbucket. And so now that I feel good about that, I'll go ahead and save this, save the project in general. Save. Generally, it has to save before it runs. Okay. I'm going to add something to my screen switcher so you can see me executing this information over git bash. We use git bash to save files to our Git repo, check out branches, and commit branches, and push branches. So give me a second. perfect. Now you're seeing me connect to Git Bash. And my current task is SC1. That's a self-assigned ticket number. Our tickets are managed in Trello. And you see the current ticket that I have here is marked SC1, the exact same name as my current branch, SC1. And let me see what the diff is here. Good. Status. And I'll go ahead and do a commit. I don't have any new files. Shrapnel appears to be in a good state. Okay, and to write that message, I use a program called Bin. So Git Bash allows you to have access to a couple of different tools. One tool, if you have a Mac that you're probably familiar with, is sort of a terminal setup where you can run Git commands inside of it. Well, this Git Bash is the Windows version of that, and it gives you access to some to the file system, generally the way that you would navigate the file system with Linux, and it also gives you access to be able to save files the way you would like to. So I'm saving the file currently. I actually just committed the files, and I'm going to do a push. And I think I'm probably going to have to set the upstream on this. Oh no, I've already got an upstream branch set, so it knows where to push to exactly. So that's done, and we like to follow specific Git checkout dev. We like to follow specific best practices when it comes to using Git properly. So we have a dev branch, and now we're going to commit to our dev branch. So I'm going to, I'm actually going to pull a change in that I just made from my Git repo to my dev branch. You can see right here that I'm, see if this has mouse capture on. Settings. I'm trying to make sure the settings are, my cursor is captured. I think I'm good based on the settings that I have. Yeah, I see it. Okay, so you can see right here my branch name is dev. I was just on SC1. Now I'm on dev. So I'm going to go ahead and do a git fetch. Fetch what's out in the repo right now on Bitbucket. And looks like it performed the fetch. I'm going to say git pull origin dev. Make sure I have an up-to-date copy of the dev branch, which, since I'm the only developer on this right now, I know I have an up-to-date copy, but I'm just running through the motions here. And then now I can do, since I've already done a fetch, I can do git pull origin sc-1, and that should pull the changes that I just made into the dev branch. Now, once I'm done pulling the changes in, I'm going to go ahead and switch to a new feature branch after I select a new task here. So my current task is done. I would normally push that to code review, especially if I had another developer on hand. For now, I'm going to go ahead and push it to complete. Unfortunately, being the sole developer at this time, I don't have the opportunity for someone to review my code and tell me if they see anything wrong with my code, point out anything, or make any good recommendations for making something a little bit more efficient with my code. So at that point, I think we're done, and Probably the very next thing I would do after I finished a task is I would create a build. But since I'm going to start working on 1 or 2 more tasks here, I'm going to go ahead and not create the build at the moment. And then I'll just pull a new task off and make sure that right now I go ahead and assign a new ticket number. And I think the task that I need to work on right now, let's see this is a duplicate task. I'm going to archive it, write a comment on it, duplicate task, comment. Let me edit this real quick. C SC-1. Save. Okay, that's archived. Now I'm going to pick the next task. I think the very next task that I want to do is simple organization of files. So I'm going to make this a little bit more organized. Files. Add, and I'm going to do one more thing along with that and remove duplicate code and work on object inheritance where possible. I'm going to take the story points out of here for right now. These 4 are basically related, so I'm going to go ahead and pull them over to in progress, and I'm going to assign them ticket numbers. So give this a ticket number, SC2, save, SC for Skycurser, save that guy. Change this guy to SC3. That's 3. Save. SC-4. Save. SC-5. And save. Okay, I think we're good at this point. I'm going to go ahead and check out. I'm wondering if I can do. I'm going to check out one branch and say that all of these are related, and the one branch is going to be SC2. I'm limited with what I have with Trello. Using Trello specifically kind of to utilize Trello as kind of a development ticketing system and tracking system so that we can see what has been completed. Because it's free, I know there are some other free ticketing systems out there, but those some of those require you to do things in also a very specific way. I could use Bitbucket's ticketing system. They're limited with what I can do in terms of workflow. I don't think as I understand, I can't track workflow the way I need to in Bitbucket. And the other ticketing systems that I'm familiar with that are open source, I would need a website with hosting to be able to install them. And while I do have some of those, I'm trying to keep it as simple as possible, not install an entire ticketing system, manage the upgrades and everything of the ticketing system, but use something like Trello, keep it as simple as possible that keeps as much maintenance with that ticketing system off my hands as possible. So let me just check chat, make sure I'm not missing anything. Okay, perfect. So now I'm going to go ahead and check out a branch. Specifically, I'm going to check out SC2 for Skycurser branch 2. Now I have Skycurser branch 2. Generally what I do, I found with GameMaker, whenever I change branches and start making new changes, I just go ahead and reset GameMaker. I open up GameMaker and just kind of restart it. So I'm going to do that right now. GameMaker is restarting. Okay. Good. All right, now we have GameMaker opened up with the new file system. I've found working with GameMaker when I'm switching between branches when using a version control system like Git, sometimes GameMaker starts getting into a weird state and starts erroring out. So the only way I've found to fix that is to shut down GameMaker, basically restart it in between switching branches. I wish there was an easier way, but I haven't found one immediately. Also, something that I've considered doing is just editing files straight in the file system and not ever using the UI that Git provides you to edit files and add specific functions. And I'm becoming more and more familiar with GameMaker as time progresses, but I'm not entirely confident that I could make the right changes right now without doing a lot of research to make sure I'm just programming straight in text files all day with GameMaker. So I'm sticking to the UI for now. The one thing that I wish that GameMaker did a lot better that I'm not entirely confident with in the UI is that when you open multiple files up, by default they don't just tab on top of each other. Instead, they just sit on top of each other. And I think there is a way to have multiple tabs open in one window in GameMaker, but it's not turned on by default, or it doesn't just open the files that way by default. So that's one major thing that could be a huge time saver. Instead of opening multiple files, closing multiple files, instead I could just switch back and forth between tabs. Maybe as time progresses, they will either A, release that, or B, I'll figure out how they expect that to happen by default. So, okay, so current task has got to get updated on the stream because now we're doing some tech debt pay down. So let me update that really quickly here. And I'll put the ticket number right with it just in case I'm ever coming back to the stream and trying to figure out which ticket my current task was associated with. And do one small thing here. Okay. Perfect. Alright, so what do I have to fix in terms of tech debt paydown, and what exactly do I mean by tech debt paydown? Tech debt paydown is a term that we have in the software engineering industry where you're working really rapidly to get something done quickly, and in the process you incur a lot of debt, so to speak, for the sake of getting something done in a certain time frame. And inevitably, when you start rushing and trying to get through something quickly, you start incurring that debt, and you basically start taking some shortcuts, cutting a few corners, and then you find yourself in a place where you have to go back a little bit later and pay off that debt. And so I'm in that place right now. We are currently 1 year into development of the project. At this point, we've gotten a lot done. we have basically the basic engine of the game in place, and we have all of level 1 complete, save a few special effects that we want to add to it. But the feedback that we've gotten from live demos has been overwhelmingly positive. But nonetheless, the game runs well, but I need to go back and consolidate a few things, make a few things easier to navigate, especially in my navigation that I'm using in GameMaker. And some other things that I want to do along those lines with the Tech Debt Paydown are object inheritance where possible in GameMaker, and absolutely I would love to have no duplicate lines of code. Where I have a lot of duplicate lines of code right now are between all the enemies that we have, and the other thing that I would like to fix related to that is in the controller marked as enemy generator, I have a lot of duplicate code there. So I would like to convert some of that code to story points and maybe use a timeline in GameMaker, but we'll see about that. I'm not 100% on the timeline just yet. I'm not sure that I want to do that, but yeah, so let's just get started. I know basically how to group most of my items here, and I'm going to group a lot of them similar to how I've grouped them down here in the objects section. So mainly because with GameMaker, basically every object, well, I shouldn't say every object, but with an object you can associate a sprite, and most of my sprites are already separated. Most of my objects are already separated, and those have an associated sprite. So I'm basically going to do the same breakdown on the sprites that I have. So let me just kind of mirror what I have here. I'm going to create a folder. Call it Skycurser. And inside the Skycurser folder, of course, it puts it in the oh, no, that is not in the objects folder. They created one up here in sprites. That's the other thing that I'm a little disenchanted with GameMaker, is that every time you insert something, say I insert a sprite or insert a script or insert an object, the scroll bar jumps all the way to the bottom, and it's just not, it doesn't save a lot of time. It actually wastes a lot of time just trying to find my position, especially when I've only got one level done and have this many assets. I wonder what this is going to look like when we have 5 levels complete, and all the new assets that we're going to have, all the backgrounds, all the effects, all the enemies. It's going to be a lot. So inside the Skycurser folder, I've got katana, shotgun flash, mini blast bullet, shotgun shell flash, the afterburner for Skycurser, and there are several enemies. I think there are some more down here that I will add up there, but for now I think I could start the next folder. Create a group, and I'm going to call this just enemies. Okay, similar to how I have it down here. Yep, got some enemies here. These are basically all of our enemies right now. So I'm going to do the same thing here. Where did that folder go? Okay, it dropped to the bottom. Not sure if I want to work with it right there or not. Start again up here. I'm going to create another folder called Impacts. These are all the explosions, blood explosions, shrapnel, etc. See where that got created. Okay, right now I know I can grab these, drop them in impacts. Unfortunately, I cannot control click or shift click on the navigation. That would be an awesome thing to add into the navigation. If somebody from GameMaker ever watches this video and wants to make that update, I would hugely appreciate it. I think that would be one more nice piece to add for developers. Let's see. Okay, I think I have another one called backgrounds. Yeah, let's add that one in here. Insert group, backgrounds. I have a ton of backgrounds here, so once I add that, See how it jumps down every single time? That's what I was talking about. Okay. And so backgrounds should be up here. Where's backgrounds? Backgrounds. Man, where did that even go? Game Maker, what are you doing to me? Let's try that again, because apparently I don't see it. Yeah, oh there it is, there it is, okay. Alright, so here we go. Just drop everything in the folder here. Sprite background meat mode. Those are enemies. And now I've got more backgrounds right here. Background, 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 background. Okay. The other thing that I would love it to do immediately would be to allow me to click a button that would sort it, because I understand some people might not want to sort it in alphabetical order, but if they would allow me to sort it in alphabetical order, I would love that, because it would save a lot of time. Especially I wouldn't have to go through here and organize everything specifically. Moon, stars, sunset, 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 cloud, 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 cloud. Those are impacts, and those are enemies. So here's a sprite shell casing that goes to Skycurser. I think that's it. Let's go up here now, close the backgrounds folder. See one or two more backgrounds here. Background. That didn't go there. Background. Background. Menu crest and logo. I think that's a background. Got some bitmap fonts that I was testing in here. I don't think I'm using those anymore. Better ways to do fonts. See several more backgrounds here. I've got a ton of backgrounds for stage 1. I'm sure there'll be a ton of backgrounds for every stage, so I'll probably end up dividing these out by stage eventually. Unless, of course, some of them bleed over into a different stage, which I think we're trying to do as little of that as possible. Okay, I know that I can close this guy now. Let me see if I can start getting some enemies in here. Inside of my objects folder, where do I have the Necrostar chunks? Necrostar chunks. I think they should be marked as an enemy. Yes, I do. Okay, enemies. Sprite boss 1, enemy. Boss missile smoke, boss missile, boss alternate, boss 1, Necrostar, tank, 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 banner goes in the backgrounds. I'm gonna put bitmap fonts in the backgrounds because I think that's how they're set up down in the objects area. And Necrostar blood. I don't think I'm using that anywhere, which is fine. That can go. hotspot. Macrostar hotspot goes with the enemies. This is an impact. Macrostar hotspot enemies. Macrostar blood impacts. This is a background. Background's closed. Enemy stuff. For attack, that marked as bullet impact. That marked as impact. Interestingly enough, it's not marked as impact. I think it's marked as Skycurser. Yep, it is. Which I'm fine with. I'm gonna drag it up there. Okay, now we've got a lot of impacts here, so I'm going to drag those. Actually, I see a couple of more Skycurser things, so I'm going to add those in real quick. And the other thing, here's another thing, if somebody from Game Maker ever watches this, I would love to grab something. Now I've basically got it. I don't really have a hand grabbing anything. It doesn't show a hand. I would love it if it would show a hand. And then I can't scroll at all. I think I can slide to the bottom of the screen or the top of the screen. But this is very time consuming to try it. I can't even get into a nice hotspot right now to drag that. So, you know, the hotspot to drag on the navigation system is a little bit off. For top and bottom, and then I can't scroll when I have something selected, so it would be awesome if I could grab something, scroll, drop it into its location. Also, let me get to the enemies here, or let's do these impacts because I think I can get those taken care of. Impacts, impact, 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 blood spatter, blood spatter, blood spatter, blood explosion. The explosion bullet impact back. Back is my short for backup, BAK. I know it's not spelled correctly, but when you're a developer, you use shortcuts. Impact, sprite explosion, and then we also have a couple of enemies here. I think the enemy 5 death is marked as an enemy in object, so let me check. Yep, it is, so I'm going to add enemy 5 death to enemies. 5, 4, 3, 3, 2 dead. 2, enemy 1, enemy 1, sprite enemy 1, sprite enemy 1, prop, sprite enemy 1. And that's it. That is it. Sprites are much better organized right now, so that's a good spot. That's a good spot to be for the current task. Alright, also, something that I have to organize here, especially here, are the scripts. Got a lot of scripts going right now, and I know a lot of these are going to be reduced and probably consolidated. But for now, I think the best way to navigate these is going to be to organize these as well. Let me see. Paths, few backgrounds, few sounds. Enemies. Gonna go popcorn. We call some of the enemies popcorn eyeballs because they're the small ones that fly across the screen in a particular pattern. Boss hover, boss transition, and then shrapnel. Impacts. Let's just call this impacts. Similar to the other naming convention that we have. Drop. Drop. And even when I had the file selected and dropped on the folder, it still didn't recognize that I was trying to drop it in the folder. So another thing to update for Game Maker. Alright. Bullet shells. Let's just call this Skycurser, because there may be some other things Skycurser needs to do in the future. Alright. There we go. Gone. Alright. Go ahead and organize these scripts. Alright, there are a lot of enemy scripts here, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to create some of the same things that I've created in some of the other folders. Got this. And create a group, enemies. Let's leave it at that for now. Boss 1 animation, boss 1 reset, loop 2, loop 2 start, reset loop, boss 1 dive, boss 1 collide, boss 1 fire, boss 1 movement final, boss 1 movement, boss 1 animation, boss 1 generate. Necrostar die, Necrostar, movement, Necrostar animation, Necrostar generate, Necrostar 1. Outside room, collide, fire, movement, animation, generate. What else do we have here? I see some Skycurser items. A little bit hard to get them all in the right place at the moment. Just grab tank 1 die, outside room, fire, collide, movement, animation, generate. Script enemy 5, which is our enemy 5. That's our bubble eyeball, BEB for short. Script enemy 5. Side room, collide, fire, movement, animation, generate. Script enemy 4, which is our fly, die, outside room, collide, fire, movement, animation. Script enemy 4 generate, script enemy 3 die, outside room, collide, fire for script enemy 3, movement, animation, generate, script enemy 3. Enemy 3 is our popcorn eyeball. This guy right here. The guy that flies in the pattern along the path, the popcorn path. Alright, script enemy 2. Script enemy 2 outside the room. Collide, fire. Script enemy 2. Enemy 2 is the floating eyeball, or FEB, the FEB we call it for short. Alright, and the script enemy 1 is the one that we just added the shrapnel to and tested it and liked the way it looked. It is the eyeball plane, the EBP, the eyeball that flies on top of the plane. Alright. Fire, movement, animation. And I do see that, I of course see that I'm getting them out of sorts a little bit. I know they're not quite in the pristine order that they were, but now they are under a little bit more of a manageable state. Now back to Skycurser. I see that Skycurser dies is right here. Some things happen with Skycurser dies in particular. Enemy 1 generate, level complete. Am I doing anything with enemy 1 generate? Yeah, I am. I think that needs to go in the enemies. Yeah. Alright. Here we go. I'm looking for Skycurser items that I can add in there. Screen shake, high scores initial, screenshot save, boot directories, story points, speed engine, Skycurser return home, yep. Skycurser movement, Skycurser guide, cockpit, We'll leave weapons as a separate one. Generate transition clouds. So that's kind of a background one. I'm going to create a group called helpers. And these are kind of miscellaneous, the miscellaneous items that I have. Go to level complete. Update controls. Pixel placement I think is unused. Nearest nth. Screen shake. I'm going to create one more. I think I can pull something out of there and call it room controls. And so some of the things I can pull out of there for sure. Room go to, level complete. Oh, you know you want to drop in there. Game maker. Alright. Let's see, high scores get. Scores display, save. Initial select. Screenshot. I'm going to put it in helpers. Boot directory. Has nothing in it at the moment. I'm going to put that in helpers. Set select. I have to see where that one is called from. I'm going to search for it real quick. Script, set select. Called in high scores initials, so we will drop that in high scores. Story points. That one is unused at the moment. Speed engine, helpers. Orbs fired. I think that's an enemy. Boss enemy. Helper. Weapon transitions. I'm going to create one called weapons. And we'll drop, okay, so where we're at right now. Story points is unused at the moment. I'm going to call that, I'm going to put that in room controls because my eventual goal is to have story points. So if you're watching me play the game, I mentioned this yesterday, but I've created a concept where I can hop in the game and fast forward basically to where I need to be in the game, and the game handles it gracefully. It basically increases the speed of everything that comes on screen the exact way that it needs to be, and then I can hit, stop fast forwarding, and all of a sudden it'll be in normal speed. So that's been hugely helpful for me to be able to jump ahead to different sections in the game. But what I'd like to do is create this object, this concept called story points. And timeline may do it for me, but I'm not sure that it can do everything else for me that I needed to do. So I'm going to investigate timeline with GameMaker a little bit. But basically the idea of story points would be that as an administrator of the game, I can jump ahead to any section of the game as I need to, so I can test it immediately right where it's at. And so that would allow, background transitions to happen correctly and the correct background to load in the specific part that I jump to immediately. So it's kind of like a menu jump to a specific point in the game. Right now, all I have is fast forward because that's all I created. Reset game. I'm going to put that with, update controls. Yep. Weapon transition, go to the weapons. Drop in there. Game maker, you're killing me. Animate shotgun determine step. Generate transition clouds. I'm going to say this is room controls. And stop all non-essential sounds. I'm going to say that's helpers. That particular script prevents object enemy 1 from making an explosion sound that repeats infinitely at the wrong point in time. It basically is bug prevention, that particular script. a lot, Intoxicant. Thanks a lot, Intoxicant 79. Good to see you here. Hopefully you can join me again in the future. Alright, so I think we're in a good spot right now. I think I might do one more thing here and narrow this enemies folder down just a little bit more, because there are so many scripts that control all of the enemies. So I'm going to do that really quickly here. Create script. Wrong button. I wanted to create a group. Insert group inside of enemies. I'm going to call it enemy 1. Drop all the enemy 1 things that I can find in there. Animation, flag. Good there. Another one. Click out of there. Insert group. Enemy 2. Okay. Enemy 2 die. Enemy 2 fire. Enemy 2 generate. Animation, collide, movement. 2 outside the room. Drop in there. Okay. All right. One more. Insert group, enemy 3. All the scripts that we have for enemy 3 will go in there, of course. So it looks to me like the way GameMaker has it, based on what I'm seeing right now, creating a whole bunch of folders and trying to drop files in the folder. If you drag something on the folder icon and your cursor is below half of the entire space that the text takes up for that folder indicator, then it drops it in the folder. If it's halfway above, it's above halfway, then I don't think it drops it in. I'm testing that theory right now. Yeah, that's correct. So you gotta basically drop it at the bottom of the folder, or drop it in on something that's already in that folder. Okay. Script enemy 3 die, and I think we're good right there. Additionally, we want to create one for enemy 4. Generate, movement, outside room, animation, die. I think that's it. Alright. Another one, 5. This is so essential because I waste so much time trying to navigate through all my scripts. So I'm just trying to make it easier to navigate, save me a little bit of time as I'm doing each update, and making small tweaks here and there to what we already have. I'm going to create another one called Tank. It's called Tank 1. Tank 1. Generate. Fire, collide, movement, animation, outside room. Select it. From here, looks like we got one for Necrostar 1. And the Necrostar chunk is basically an asteroid. I'll show that to you real quick. And chunk. There's two different sizes of Necro Star chunks as you're flying through the Necro Star chunk field. It looks like a small asteroid, but it is. Chris has a better explanation of it than I do, being the art director and kind of the visionary of what the levels are going to be, the stage designer basically. I guess Phil also works with the stage design, but Chris comes up with the enemies often, and so the Necro Star is the thing that is, I guess I don't want to give too much away for the storyline, but as I understand it, the Necro Star is the thing that is creating these mutants from outer space, and these are the chunks that are flying off of the Necro Star. Yeah, so that's all I can say. Okay, so yeah, I was going to show you what the Necro Star looked like. Here it is. So, here's a preview of it. Let's slow it down a little bit. Speeding it up, that was an accident. So slow it down a little bit. That's actually kind of what it looks like in game. We have a couple of additional animations attached to it when it gets generated in game. So yeah, looks pretty good. Looks really good actually. Right, Necro Star. There we go. Drop it correctly. Necro Star movement, animation, fire, die. Outside room. Okay. Necro Star generate. And we've got Necro Star 2. Necro Star 2. Alright. Movement, animation, collide, fire, die, outside room. So you'll notice if you're watching here and paying close attention, you'll notice that each one of the enemies has very similar scripts that I've attached with them. Each one of them has a generate, each one of them has an animation, each one of them has a collide, each one has a fire, each one has a script for what happens when it leaves the room, each one has one for the movement that it takes, and each one has one for death. And these are basically about 7 different things that I've identified that most enemies have in common. And probably what I'll do is make this I'll make these a little bit easier, but some of these, depending on what each enemy does, they can be very complex. And so right now that's why they've all been separated, and rightfully so. The ones that could mainly probably see a lot of overlap would be anything that goes outside the room. So that will be something I take a look at specifically when I'm trying to remove/reduce duplicate code. Okay, another group, boss 1. Generate, collide, fire, movement, loop reset, loop 2 start, loop 2, and tank 1. Possible die. Movement and orbs fired are part of the boss. Just verify this one. Yes, it is. Alright. Reset. Yep. Perfect. Scripts. How I have longed for such a clean scripts folder. Now I should be able to get where I need to fairly quickly. Is it room specific? Is it miscellaneous? Is it Skycurser specific? Is it weapon specific? Which I think I'll go ahead and add that to Skycurser. I think I can do that. Try that one more time. Yeah, there it is. Boom. Yeah, because most of my weapons, I'm speaking specifically there of Skycurser's weapons, so I'll go in there to look. Room controls, and then enemies. And this is a really good state for the scripts folder to be in. Let's see what time is. Okay. So I think I'm going to call it quits there. It's almost 10 o'clock Eastern time. And my current task, if you've been following along, I finished the initial task that I was working on. The initial task that I was working on was directly related to the shrapnel for the explosions that occur in game. And I pulled off about 4 different tasks that are all related from our Trello board. Let's see if I can switch over to that and show you. Okay, Trello board. So I pulled off of our Trello board, I pulled off the backlog and assigned to myself and went ahead and put them in progress 4 tickets that I think are related, which I'm calling Tech Debt Paydown, which includes removing duplicate code, correctly choosing when to inherit objects, when objects should have parents or when objects should have children. Something that I see immediately that could definitely use object inheritance would be the enemies, and really looking forward to how I can put all the enemies, or most of them, in some sort of object, parent object, so that I can reuse as much code as possible there. Also, organization of files. My files are, because I've been in such a rush over the last year in trying to knock out this first stage, my files have become pretty unorganized, and I was able to spend a little bit of time this evening organizing those files so that as I'm programming in the future, I'm basically paying it forward now that I've paid down the debt for my file organization. I'm actually paying it forward to myself to be able to navigate quickly along my file system. So we also saw a little bit of headaches that GameMaker has. We in our project are using GameMaker. It was a low cost, it's affordable, I can program with it on Windows, it can export to almost any platform, and if you're following the development of the game up to this point, I know this is only the 2nd daily stream, but we've put a lot of just kind of our graphics and some videos online over the last year. And if you followed along, you know that we're building this game specifically for the arcade, and you can read more about that on the channel. But yeah, it's something we're really excited about. We want to have something that's as optimized as possible for the arcade, with as much authentic hardware as we can for the arcade, and then eventually, after we get that completed, which our expected completion date for the arcade, and hopefully roughly 5 levels that we're considering, is going to be February 2016. So we expect to have a fully functional game start to finish by February 2016. We already have a fully functional arcade cabinet, and we're making minor tweaks to the hardware, and we've already had 2 live location tests where people could play all the way through the first level. It was set on free play, so they could die as many times as they wanted, continue as many times as they wanted until they could play all the way through the boss on level 1. And I've said it a couple times already, but the feedback was really awesome. And our first demo test was local, and we had a demo test at a brewery, and about 300 people showed up, so it was a really good turnout. But yeah, and we've had 1 or 2 more since then. We're going to be at MGC with our arcade cabinet, so it'll be playable. We'll have it ready to be to play through the first level, the one that we basically already have complete and are making minor tweaks to at this point. So if questions, don't hesitate to contact us as we're off stream, but the best way to follow us and receive updates in the future is to scroll down to the bottom of the channel and look at the follow links that we have there. We have a Tumblr link, which is our development blog. It's basically a quick way that we can do quick graphic updates. It's not quite the development, here's what we coded this particular day to get this particular output, but it shows a lot of the artwork that we have, and it looks really good. So you can see a little bit of eye candy on there and get excited about what's coming up next before it even makes it into the game. So Chris, the art director, is working on this stuff pixel for pixel,
all the artwork and handing it off to me after he's kind of thought through how he wants everything to work. So yeah, so we've got some exciting things coming up, but if you follow us on Twitter, that's a very good way to know when we're going to start streaming. We do have a schedule, and that is also in the channel. If you scroll down and just take a look at what the schedule is, if we can't stream a particular day, we'll try to show a recent replay of something that we have just recently done, or my buddy Chris, who is also one of the indie devs, the guy I mentioned is the art director. He will probably be streaming here in the near future. We're getting his channel set up, and you'll be able to follow him as he's doing the pixel artwork, and it's going to look really good. But anytime that we're going live, we will tweet that, and you'll see. Join us at that point. So I don't mean to drag on, but thanks for watching this either live or via video as you've come back here, and we're all more than happy to answer any questions if you want to contact us outside. So thanks a lot, guys. We'll talk to you soon.